I never really knew my father. Sure, we lived under the same roof. We shared dinners, birthdays, and Sunday morning rituals with burnt toast and the smell of old books lingering in the kitchen. But even in those shared moments, he felt distant. Like he was always carrying a secret too heavy to share. He was a stern man, brilliant and respected. A judge who carved his name into the legal books of our small town with unwavering precision. People admired him, feared him, but no one really knew him, not even me, his only son. When he died, I expected a standard farewell. A somber will. A modest inheritance. Maybe even a token of approval, something he never managed to express while alive. But what I got was a mystery. At the lawyer's office, the air was thick with dust and anticipation. My sister, Lillian, sat beside me, clutching a silk handkerchief she didn't really need. She always did love appearances. Her perfume clashed with the scent of aging leather and old paper. Mr. Creighton, my father's lifelong lawyer, pulled out a manila envelope as though it contained nuclear codes. His eyes met mine with a strange mixture of sympathy and reluctance. Your father left behind something unconventional. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? He cleared his throat and slid a single envelope and a small brass key across the polished oak desk. He left you a letter. And this. No money. No house. No shares in his law firm. Just a key. To a storage unit. Lillian received everything else. House, investments, family heirlooms. The will was crystal clear. Her smug look could have cracked glass. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The letter in my hand suddenly felt heavier than everything she'd been given. Back in my car, I stared at the letter. My father's handwriting was sharp and deliberate, just like the man himself. I opened it with shaking fingers. My son, if you're reading this, I am gone. I don't expect you to mourn me deeply. I know I've failed you in many ways. But there is something I must pass on that is far more valuable than any inheritance. I've hidden a truth from you. A truth that could alter everything you thought you knew about me and yourself. Go to the address on the key. What you find there will be the beginning of a journey I should have taken with you a long time ago. Forgive me if you can. You are stronger than you realize. Dad. I sat there in the parking lot for a long time, letting the words soak in. My father, the cold, unreadable judge, suddenly sounded human. Vulnerable. The key was attached to a tag. Unit 317 Crescent Lock Storage, open alone. I went the next day. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town, near the old rail yard. The kind of place where time seemed to slow and memories felt heavier. The key turned with a reluctant click. The door rolled open with a groan. Inside, instead of dusty furniture or forgotten junk, there were dozens of old leather-bound journals neatly arranged in a bookshelf. A small desk. A typewriter. A safe. And one framed photograph, yellowed at the edges. My father, much younger, standing beside a woman who was not my mother. In his arms was a baby. Also not me. I froze. Something told me my life was about to split into two, before this moment and after. I stood there for what felt like hours, the air thick with dust and a strange kind of silence that wasn't entirely empty. The photograph was old, but my father's face was unmistakable. He looked younger, lighter, like he was caught in a moment of joy. The woman beside him had long auburn hair and eyes that sparkled, even in faded ink. She wasn't my mother. And the baby in his arms had a birthmark on the right cheek, just like mine. My heart pounded. I couldn't breathe. I picked up the photo with trembling fingers, flipping it over. In faint pen, almost erased by time, were the words, Celia, our son's first birthday. 1989. My birthday. Celia? My mother's name is Margaret. She and my father divorced when I was 13, and even then, she never spoke ill of him. She was always vague about their past, as if there were landmines buried in their history she didn't want me stepping on. And now, here I was holding a photograph of another woman. Another life. I moved to the desk and opened the top drawer. Inside was a small box of letters, tied with blue ribbon, aged and fragile. Dozens of them, all addressed to Celia. All signed with my father's name. The first one began, Celia. I hate writing from afar, but I had no choice. The court never should have given her full custody. You know I tried. Got it right? They threatened to expose everything. I had to disappear for his sake. I blinked hard. The words made no sense, and yet they made too much sense all at once. I read another. He will grow up thinking she's his mother. That's what they want. What they decided. But I'll never stop watching over him. Even if from afar. Someday, when he's ready, I'll tell him everything. I promise you that, Celia. I will never let our truth be erased. I dropped the letter like it had burned me. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. Had my entire life been a lie? I turned to the safe next. I found the combination on a slip of paper under the typewriter. Inside was a single item, a VHS tape, labeled in my father's handwriting, for when he's ready. I didn't even have a VHS player. I hadn't seen one in years. But I took the tape with me, shoving it into my coat pocket like it might vanish if I left it behind. That night I barely slept. My mind was caught in a loop, memories, questions, fragments of my childhood that now shimmered with a new, eerie light. I called my mother the next morning. She answered on the third ring, cheerful at first, until she heard the weight in my voice. Mom? Who is Celia? There was silence. A long, tense silence. Then, where did you hear that name? Dad left me a key. A storage unit. There are photos, letters. Another silence. A softer one. Like wind leaving a sail. I hoped this day wouldn't come, she whispered. You knew. I tried to protect you, she said. From the mess we all made. From the choices that broke us. Is she my mother? No, she said quietly. But she was supposed to be. My knees buckled. I sat down on the edge of my bed, the phone shaking in my hand. Your father loved her. But they weren't supposed to be together. Celia was married. Her husband was a powerful man with dangerous connections. When she got pregnant, she was going to leave him. For your father. But then, she sighed. They found out. Celia vanished. Her husband claimed she left the country. Your father was warned. If he tried to raise the baby, if he exposed anything, both of you would be in danger. I stepped in. I offered an arrangement. I would raise you as my own. The judge ruled in our favor. Your father distanced himself, for your safety. I was speechless. Why didn't he tell me? He wanted to. But he never forgave himself. And by the time the danger passed, he thought it was too late. Is she still alive? I don't know, she said. No one ever heard from her again. After we hung up, I stared at the VHS tape on my desk. The mystery wasn't over. It had only just begun. It took me 3 days to find someone who still owned a VHS player. An old video repair shop on the east side of town had one set up in the back, behind dusty shelves and forgotten tech. The owner, a quiet man with thick glasses, barely asked questions when I told him I needed to watch something private. I sat alone in the back room while he closed the door behind me. The screen flickered to life in grainy black and white. A timestamp in the corner read March 12, 1993. I was 4 years old. The camera shook slightly as someone adjusted it. Then my father appeared, young, with more hair and softer eyes. He sat in a leather chair, fingers interlaced, gaze steady. If you're watching this, then I've failed twice. First, by not protecting the woman I loved. And second, by never telling you the truth about who you are. He took a breath. Your name is not the one I gave you legally. It's the name Celia whispered to you in the hospital the day you were born, Aaron. You were born out of love. Real, painful, defiant love. And for that we paid a price. My hands trembled in my lap. Her husband was a man with reach, political, criminal. When he discovered you weren't his, he made her disappear. I tried everything. Everything. But she was gone and you were next. He threatened you by name. He looked away for a moment, swallowing hard. I couldn't lose you too. So I gave you a different life. I let Margaret raise you. We told the world you were ours from the start. And I became someone you didn't recognize anymore. The video glitched briefly, then steadied. You may hate me. I understand that. But I never stopped loving you. I watched you grow from a distance. I cheered every school play, every scraped knee, every triumph and mistake. From the shadows. He reached behind him and lifted a small, velvet box. This was your mother's. Celia's. She kept it close until the day she vanished. I found it in her car, the last place they found traces of her. The screen faded to black. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then, the video resumed, and this time, it was footage, home video style. A young woman with auburn hair, laughing as she held a baby up to the sunlight. Her voice, melodic, singing a lullaby I'd never heard before but somehow recognized. The baby had my birthmark. My chest ached. My throat clenched. The footage ended with her looking into the camera. For when he's older, she said softly, tell him we loved him more than the world would ever understand. I sat in silence after the tape ended, my mind spiraling. The shop owner tapped on the door but I didn't respond. I needed time. That night, I took the velvet box from the safe. Inside was a necklace, delicate, gold, with a charm shaped like a crescent moon. Engraved on the back, to for all the nights we never got. I wept for her. For the woman I never knew. For the man I misunderstood. For the child I had been, so close to a truth he couldn't comprehend. I spent the next week digging. Newspaper archives, court records, anything I could find. Celia's maiden name was Barlow. No obituary. No missing persons report. Just silence. Like she'd been erased. Then I found it. A photo. Buried in a 1993 social club newsletter. Celia Barlow, guest speaker, Women in Law luncheon. She was alive. Or at least she had been. The photo was dated 4 months after her supposed disappearance. It didn't make sense. But there was a name next to hers. A law clerk from out of state. Olivia Mendez. I called every Olivia Mendez I could find. On the 5th try, I heard her voice. Old raspy cuss. Yes, I knew Celia. Briefly. Why do you ask? She was my mother, I said. Silence. Then, meet me tomorrow. Don't bring anyone. I drove 5 hours through the night. Whatever she had to say, I was ready for it. The house was tucked into a quiet neighborhood near the outskirts of a faded town, the kind of place where time moved slower, where secrets could settle like dust and never be swept away. Olivia Mendez answered the door herself, her posture straight despite the years carved into her face. Her eyes scanned me, not unkind but cautious, like she was weighing something invisible. You look like her, she said. But your eyes, those are his. She stepped aside and let me in. The living room was dim but warm, filled with old books, the scent of jasmine tea, and faint classical music playing from a record player in the corner. She motioned for me to sit, then poured 2 cups of tea with slow, deliberate hands. I always wondered if someone would come one day, she said. Not him. But you. Then she's dead? I asked, barely able to get the words out. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened a drawer in the nearby cabinet and pulled out a folder, thick with yellowed paper, newspaper clippings, and photos. She's alive, Olivia said finally. But she stopped being Celia Barlow a long time ago. I stared at her, the words not making sense. What do you mean? She faked her death. With help. The world tilted. She disappeared to survive, Olivia continued. And keep you alive. Your father was right. The man she was married to was dangerous. Not just politically connected, but backed by people who don't exist on paper. She learned he had plans to harm you. So she staged a car accident. Left behind traces, enough for the world to believe she was gone. Then vanished. I gripped the edge of the table. So where is she now? I don't know exactly, Olivia admitted. But I do know she made it out of the country. I helped arrange the documents. I never saw her again after that. She left me this. She handed me a sealed envelope with my name on it. Not my legal name, not the one I grew up with. But the name my father told me was whispered at birth, Aaron. My hands trembled as I opened it. My dearest Aaron, if you are reading this, then the world has finally shifted enough for the truth to find you. There is not a single day I haven't thought of you. You were my joy, my light, and my reason. I watched you sleep every night for the first year of your life, memorizing the shape of your breath, the warmth of your skin. When I realized I couldn't protect you from the shadows around us, I made the most painful decision of my life. I gave you up, not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you so fiercely that losing you the right way was better than having you taken the wrong way. Your father, he was broken without you. We both were. But we chose silence so that you could grow up in peace. I hope one day you'll find me. I will wait forever if I must. With all the love this world can hold. Mom. Tears rolled down my face silently. Olivia watched me with quiet compassion. There's one more thing, she said, handing me a small, folded map. She left this with me in case, someday, someone brave enough came looking. It was a rough map of a coastal town in Portugal. Circled in red ink, Porto de Luz. She said she'd go there if she ever truly felt free. I left the next morning. My entire life had been dictated by silence, distance, and the lies told to protect me. But now I was done with shadows. I wanted to meet the woman who gave up her name for mine. The plane touched down in Lisbon under gray skies, and I took a train north along the coast. Porto de Luz was a sleepy fishing village with cobblestone streets and children playing barefoot in the square. I found the address from the map after 2 days of asking around. A small cottage with blue shutters and a wild rose garden. I walked up the path, heart thundering. Knocked once. And there she was. Older. Softer. But unmistakably her. Her hands rose to her mouth, eyes wide, filling with tears faster than either of us could speak. Mom, I said. She didn't answer. She just wrapped her arms around me like she'd been holding the space open for years. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd come home. We stood there in the doorway for what felt like forever, arms around each other, trembling in the silence that only deep reunion can bring. Her hair, now streaked with silver, smelled faintly of lavender. Her hands were warm but shook as they held the sides of my face, studying every inch of me like she was searching for the child she left behind and discovering the man I had become. You found me, she whispered. After all these years. I had to, I said. I needed to know the truth. She stepped back, wiping tears with the edge of her sleeve. Come inside, Aaron. Hearing her say my name, the name she gave me, made something crack open inside me. The cottage was modest but beautiful. Wooden beams. Worn rugs. Walls lined with books, seashells, and photographs. On one shelf sat a faded picture of me as a baby. Another showed her and my father, smiling in the sun. He told me everything, I said softly, glancing around. She nodded. He kept his promise then. We sat in the small kitchen. She poured us tea, her hands steadying as she moved. And slowly, over the next few hours, she told me everything. How she had fallen in love with my father while trapped in a loveless marriage to a man who used fear as a weapon. How that man's influence reached into courts, police stations, even hospitals. When he discovered she was pregnant with a child that wasn't his, the threats began. Then the violence. I knew he would come for you, she said, staring at her tea. And he wouldn't stop. So I disappeared before he could. Why didn't you try to come back later? I asked. I tried, she said, her voice hollow. But by the time it was safe, too much had changed. Your father and Margaret had raised you. You were in school, had friends, a life. I wasn't even supposed to exist anymore. I would have wanted to know you. Tears welled in her eyes again. I lived with that ache every day. We talked until the sun went down, and even then, we sat in the living room long after the sky turned to velvet. She showed me a box she'd kept through the years, drawings I made as a toddler, a lock of my baby hair, a tiny sweater she had knitted for me. Proof that no matter how far she'd been, her love had never left. She had lived a quiet life in exile, waiting, hoping that someday the danger would pass and I would find my way to her. She had heard of my father's passing through mutual friends and had feared the trail would end with him. But you kept going, she said, brushing my hair back like I was still that little boy. You have his heart. We spent the week together, walking through the village, sharing stories, laughing through tears. The people there knew her as Elena, a quiet woman who taught music lessons and baked for the church on Sundays. No one knew who she used to be or what she had lost. Until now. One evening, she handed me a final letter, one my father had written her years before he died. I dream of the day he finds you. That's the only thing that keeps me going. Tell him I never stopped loving either of you. Tell him we were more than the lies that broke us. I stayed in Porto de Luz for a month. I didn't tell anyone back home, not yet. This was just ours, untouched by the world that had tried so hard to erase it. But eventually I had to leave. I promised to come back, again and again. We were mother and son, and now we finally had time. The day I left, she stood on the shore and waved until I was gone from sight. In my pocket, I carried the crescent moon necklace she gave me, warm from her hands. My father's will hadn't left me money or property or power. It had given me something far more valuable. The truth. The pieces of a shattered past that, when put back together, revealed a life I'd never known I was missing. And in the end, it changed everything. But not in the way I, or anyone, could have ever expected.